Hello again and welcome. Michael Pizzolla here. I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the Value Capping Video Rant. Hey, it's the Kentucky Derby 2017. This, as you know, is the 143rd Kentucky Derby. And like most derbies, there are tons and tons of stories. For example, there's Patch, the one-eyed horse. I mean, come on, who can't like that? And then there's this very interesting horse called Irap. Now, many of you know that Irap actually broke his maiden in the Bluegrass Stakes. Now, that's really, really unusual. What you may not know, or you do if you're a fan, is that Doug O'Neill, the trainer, and his owner, Paul Redham, they're the ones who owned and trained last year's Kentucky Derby winner, Nyquist. And also, I think they had the 2012 Derby winner, I'll Have Another. So that's another story, a very interesting horse. And of course, the favorite, Classic Empire, the Breeders' Cup champion, just had a tough win in the Arkansas Derby. So there's a lot of subplots, as usual, going on in this year's Kentucky Derby. Now, all but 4 of the 20 colts running in the 2017 Derby are coming out of one of 5 prep races: the Arkansas Derby, the Bluegrass Derby, the Florida Derby, the Louisiana Derby, and the Santa Anita Derby. So that's another mix, another handicapping mix that just makes you scratch your head sometimes. Before I go on and talk about this year's Derby and the matchups, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Pizzolla. I'm author of the best-selling book, Handicapping Magic, co-author of the classic Pace Makes the Race. I am the creator of the original online racing forum, publisher of Post Time Daily 2.0, great online racing forum, by the way. I also published and created Black Magic Software 1.0 and the forthcoming Value Capper software, which is Black Magic 2.0, and the comprehensive training course. What I've decided to do, I am preparing for you a free training course called the Value Capping Basic Training Course. This is my very best concepts that I've been teaching, sharing, and coaching with for the last 30 years. And I think they'll provide you with very valuable frameworks no matter what kind of handicapper you are, no matter what tools you use. So stay tuned. If you're getting these rants, I will let you know about that. And the Value Capper software will be released shortly after that. That software incorporates all these frameworks. And again, keep posted. Now, value capping is a very simple framework. We look for horses that we like that the public should not like. Okay? Then we wait for our prices. In this Derby, we have an exact opposite of the value capping situation. In this Derby, we have horses that we really don't like, quote unquote like. And what's worse is that the public should like them. And I'll explain to you in detail when we go to the computer and you look over my shoulder. Now, one premise that I will share with you in the Value Capper basic training course, and something that I've been sharing with the Wizards on my private coaching group, the Wizards Forum, is that the public has been getting better and better in their handicapping and selections. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think the primary reason is the proliferation of good information and good quality numbers. And I'm partly to blame for that. I mean, I've published everything that I know, and I've also, put a lot of that work into the online past performances, the Post Time Daily 2.0. So they're all over the place, and there's been an explosion lately. If you need more evidence of that, just think about this. The last 4 Kentucky Derbies have been won by the betting favorite. Now, I cannot wrap my head around this because 20 colts, 3-year-olds, running a mile and a quarter for the first time, skittish, champions. There's 144,000, mostly inebriated, fans. I'm just kidding about the inebriation, but a couple of mint juleps may flow here and there, right? There's a wall of sound, and they pick the last 4 Derby winners. I mean, that is phenomenal work. So what the point of that is, and what that means to you, is that a new approach, an approach that goes against what the public does. Not contrary just to be contrary, but find horses that we like that the public shouldn't. And I'll give you some concrete examples of this. So if you're ready, let's go. Come and look over my shoulder while I analyze the Kentucky Derby. And I also want to show you, and by the way, spoiler alert here, it's a mess. There are 12 horses above random. There's these 5 reversal races. Oh my gosh. But we'll make do, and we'll see if we can find, if not a prime bet, then maybe some way to construct a recreational bet. But I also am going to show you 2 races from the undercards, one from Churchill Downs and one from Parks, that will illustrate more of a value capping approach. A more simple race, a more clear race. Now bear in mind, I'm recording this on Thursday before the Derby. More than 48 hours before the race. I don't have changes, I don't have scratches, I don't have any of that. I don't know what the weather's going to be. The Weather Center says that there's a 50% chance of rain, which means we may get a muddy track, sloppy track, good track, who knows? So all of that is predicated on that. I don't know if there will be any late scratches, for example, which will change the pace projection and scenario of the race. And most of all, what I want you to remember is that I'm not doing this to demonstrate to you my expertness or selection ability, okay? I want to show you, because I don't care about the outcome of any one specific race. What I want you to get out of this, what I think will be a very valuable takeaway from you, is this approach of value capping, finding those contrarian horses, horses that have good things going for them, but may be overlooked by the public, hopefully running against horses with flaws, horses the public are overbetting. I'll get much more into that when I release the free value capping basic training course. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the races. Come on to the computer, look over my shoulder, and I'll show you exactly my thinking on the Derby and a couple of undercard races. Okay, so before we get into the 2017 Kentucky Derby, I want to point out again something which struck me as amazing. As I looked back over the past few Derbies, I was struck with the fact that the last 4 Derbies have been won by the betting favorite. Now you may say, well, that's just an anomaly and that's something that happens and there was a long time where no favorites won. And yes, all of that is true. But one of the premises in value capping basic training course, which is coming out and is going to be free for you, is that I believe that with the proliferation of really good information, the public has just gotten better. More and more, I find that the public has honed in on the good horses. Now, I mean, I can show you in the 2016 Derby, which was won by Nyquist, you know, Black Magic put Nyquist right on top. I mean, no big thing. It was 5-2 and so forth. People have been asking, well, how does Value Capper do on these old races? It was fine. It had it tied up there with Mohaman and so forth. It did a little better with getting Exaggerator in there. And when Chrome won in 2014, again, right on top, and the public had it at, you know, it was 5-2. It was an outstanding horse. Maybe you might say Value Capper made a little better distinction in that it had it on top with a little bit of a gap and so forth. But in general, I'm finding the public has been getting very, very good, and that's why it's so crucial to use the principle of value capping to find horses you like that the public shouldn't. Now, Here is the 2017 Kentucky Derby as it comes right out of the box with Black Magic. Now, good gosh. There are 12 horses above random. Well, what does random mean? Well, there are 20 horses in the race. Random would be 19 to 1, right? Because any horse has one chance of winning and 19 chances of losing. So any horse above 19 to 1 would be above random. So we have 12. Good gosh, in a normal day, I'm looking for races where there are 3 or 4 horses above random, because this is a headache. And not only that, look at the 3 horses on top: Always Dreaming, Classic Empire, McCracken. And you may rightly say, I didn't need fancy software to know that. And you're exactly right. Now, at the top of the line, the Black Magic software makes the odds on these, given the size of the field, 11 to 1 and 13 to 1 on Classic Empire and McCracken, 11 to 1 on Always Dreaming. Well, horses that are 11 to 1 and 13 to 1 on the line, looking over at the morning line, these are the horses that the public should like. And by the way, and I know many of you are curious and waiting about the release of the ValueCapper software. I'll have some news on that shortly. But the ValueCapper software gives the same basic read of the race. But I have to tell you, now I will show you this, but please, in your own work, beware of using multiple tools. Those of you who are using Black Magic now, who are going to move into the ValueCapper software, just don't do what I've had to do for the last 5 years, which is compare and refine and so forth, because it causes all kinds of confusion. And those of you who are going to jump in and just get the ValueCapper software, never having had Black Magic, well, just stick with one approach. And I don't care if it's my approach or my tool or my numbers or whatever. Whatever tool you use, I promise you, the principles, the framework of value capping will stand you in good stead, and that is find horses you like that the public shouldn't. Now, in the ValueCapper software, and I've just got the guts of it here, the top 6 horses, but there are still 12 horses above random, and we still find Classic Empire and Always Dreaming at top. McCracken's still in the mix. Now, it did put the horses from the Bluegrass up in there a little higher, and I'll get to those in a second. Now, so we have morning line favorites, and this is back to Black Magic. Very, very weak odds lines are at the top. Bear in mind that 11 to 1 and 13 to 1 translates to a 7 to 8% chance of winning. Not very inspiring. This is actually the opposite of a value capping play, because these are horses we don't really like. I mean, 7 to 8% is not, love, right? Not only that we don't really like at the top of the line, but the public should like them. Those are not good bets. Now, I'm not saying Classic Empire could romp, Always Dreaming could romp. McCracken may be closing, and if there's a whole bunch of pressure, he can win, sure. But as bets before the race, sitting here on Thursday, not knowing changes and weather and all, these are horses we don't really like that the public should. A value capping horse is one that we like that the public shouldn't. And I'll show you some examples of that on the undercards later in this video. So, if this were a normal day and a normal race, and I saw that screen with 12 horses above random and the morning line favorites on top, I would pass this in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even look twice at this race. But it's the Derby. So I am compelled, gosh knows why, I'm telling you right now, as a prime bet, this is a pass for me. And I'm sorry to tell you this because, we all want to bet the Derby. So let's see if we can find something. What struck me, and this is true of both Black Magic 1 and ValueCapper software Black Magic 2.0, is that the bluegrass, runners are right below Classic Empire and Always Dreaming. Now, when the Value Capper software looked at the 2017 Bluegrass, it put the obvious horses on top, meaning Practical Joke, McCracken, and Tapwrit. And they were, not surprisingly, the public's betting choices. It actually gave a chance to Irap. Now, when I do these videos and I analyze the Bluegrass and the Rant, I don't use two tools. I'm making an exception for this Derby, and because Value Capper's coming out soon. But Irap wasn't really prominent on Black Magic 1. In certain sorts it was. But then I looked at Irap and I saw, oh gosh, it's actually going to try to break its maiden in the Bluegrass. So, that's a crazy bet. However, at 30-1, I said, okay, you know what? This is worth a $20 bet. And, no one was more surprised than me. Now, is it before the race? Is it something that I'm going to really lean into? No, it was kind of confusing. It was not a prime bet. They had the right horses, I thought. There was that one that stuck out, and Value Capper picked it up, which was, wonderful, and it was a few $100s, and all of that is great. But that's the way the Bluegrass came out, and you may wonder why would a software, and the same thing goes in many races if this happens. You have these other horses that ran behind Irap, and we see that right below the favorites, Classic Empire and Always Dreaming, McCracken's in there, came out of the Bluegrass, are the horses from the Bluegrass, but where's Irap? Well, as you've probably heard if you've been following this, the Bluegrass gets dismissed because it was a very, quote-unquote, slow race. And if you look at whatever measure, I use the master pace rating from the pace ratings in Black Magic, and that top number is considerably below the back numbers. Now, when Black Magic selects running lines, it will go back on the horses. So in other words, it's saying that the Bluegrass was a pretty slow race. Irap was life and death to win at the end, but, held on. Thank you very much, Mr. Leparoux. But the back races that it selected for the other horses were better than Irap's back races. So that's why they don't show up. Now, if we're going to get a little more refined, I went back and I looked at the track profile and specifically the energy expenditures for the last 4 derbies. Let's zoom in and we can see that there is remarkable consistency for the last 4 derby winners. In 2016 with Nyquist, 51.72, 51.88 in 2015, 51.91 in 2014. I'll have another, I think, was 2012, 51.77. That's remarkably consistent. And not surprisingly, those are horses that are not too far off the pace with a good closing kick. It's a champion's energy expenditure. So let's look at the top horses and the Bluegrass horses. And again, remember, this isn't a race with, you'd have to look at 12 horses. I'm just going to look at a handful here. Always Dreaming looks a little late. Even though visually it doesn't look too late, looks like it's going to be up there, close to the pace, but its energy expenditure is low. So I expect this horse to be a little bit late, even though it's at the top of my line. Classic Empire fits very well. We see in the Holy Bull, it ran a 51.76, and when it won the Breeders' Futurity, and it was 51.97. Now, interestingly, in the Juvenile that it also won, it was 51.97. 52.34. So It's not a bad fit at all. All right, let's look at the horses below that. McCracken, well, that last race is a little under, and then the other races, this horse is a one-run late closer. Again, this is part of the randomness of the race. This race figures to be highly pressured. This is a very late horse. It doesn't quite fit in with the recent Kentucky Derby profiles. It's a little bit on the late side. All right. How about the horses from the Bluegrass? Well, recently, Practical Joke has run 2 seconds in the Fountain of Youth and then the Bluegrass, and that energy expenditure is pretty good, especially the Fountain of Youth. It's spot on at 51.75. So I'm going to keep that one in mind. Taprit, again, a little bit all over the place. I wouldn't say absolutely not. Irap, interestingly, I mean, for a horse that broke its maiden in a grade 2 race, it's got a 51.72. The last race where it won the Bluegrass was 51.23. That's pretty good energy expenditure for the Derby. The last horse out of the Bluegrass is the 13 J-Boys Echo. Again, not bad. So those horses have a chance, but still, I want to keep bringing you back. There are 12 horses above random. It did all of that, and it still puts the morning line favorites on top. So my assessment is this will be a pass for me as a prime bet. I don't have an ego because I'm, a quote-unquote expert, and I'm supposed to know everything and, tell you the breeding of all these horses. No, in an average race, in an average race day, when I'm betting a claimer at Prairie Meadows or something, I don't look this closely because I have faith in the software that I've developed that it does all of that for me. So as a prime bet, this is a race that screams out to say pass. Now, as a recreational bet, because it's the Derby and we all want bragging rights, and that's fine as long as you can separate your quote-unquote recreational plays, small bets like I made on Irap and the Bluegrass, from your serious portfolio investment quality bets, I'll look to the Bluegrass runners. The board will help me with this. I will bet the ones that are going off at huge prices. Practical Joke, Taprit, those are, kind of high up. McCracken, I'm not crazy about because it's going to be bet. Even Irap I'll use in there, and J-Boys and so forth. And I'll use Classic Empire in the exotics for a couple of reasons. One, it's the Breeders' Cup champion, right? And two, it's at the top of my line. And I'm going to give you another reason. And that is the energy expenditure of Classic Empire is, fitting. It would not surprise me at all if Classic Empire wins the race. But if I make the horse 10-1 or on Black Magic 1, 11-1, right? And this horse is going to go off at, 3-1, 7-2, 5-2 maybe. It's just not worth the bet to win on the win side. Does he belong in the exotics? Sure, of course. Now, I know you've heard, if you've watched any of these rants on big days, that I am a big fan of the undercards. And on these big days, the best value is often found in the undercards. I'll show you a couple of races, one from the undercard at Churchill, one from Parks Racing. Bear in mind, again, I don't have changes, weather, scratches, all of that. But I want to give you an idea of how I analyze a race and the kind of races that appeal to me. Here's one from the third race at Churchill, from Derby Day, from May 6th, this coming Saturday. Now, it's a highly pressured race at a mile. I've got a horse right on top called Weibull, the 3-horse. It's 4-1 on my odds line, 6-1 on my contention line, 10-1 on the morning line. It's got patterns. In fact, it's the only horse in the arc. And notice there are only 3 horses above random. Oh, I love that. After the headache of the Derby, this looks like a cool drink of clean, clear water, doesn't it? Okay. And I also noticed that one of the favorites, the 7-horse Donegal Moon, is on a layoff. So I thought, let's take a look. This is a highly pressured race. And 3 of the top 4 horses are closers, including Weibull. That's a good sign. So the horse that's on top fits how the race projects to run, which is highly pressured. When I look at the track profiles, and I had to go back to the last meet because Churchill just started, the energy expenditure on the mile races favored late runners. Check, check, check. When we look at Weibull's energy expenditure, it's fine. It's a late runner both visually. If we look at the closes it made, look at the second race back, it closed from 6th at 6.5 lengths back to win. It's made several nice closes, and the energy expenditure is right on line with the track profile. There's one sticking point, and that is this is a sprinter. It's a sprinter stretching out. It's never tried a mile before. But it's at the top of the line on numbers, and those numbers have all been adjusted, yeah? And it's a highly pressured race, so it should fit his running style. And the percentage early is really good for it. So, I mean, do I know whether this horse will be able to get the mile? No, I don't. But sitting here a couple of days before the race, I've got a horse on top that the public should overlook, and I've got, horses behind it that aren't so inspiring. So at 10-1, 8-1, sure. I think, that's fine. And there are some issues with the 5 and the 8. I won't go into it, but they're not world beaters. This is not a world beater champion race. And the public may be just, waiting for the Derby and messing around. And, this horse could very well go off at 8-1 or 10-1, in which case I will bet that it can get the mile. Because I know? No, because I am getting compensated for that risk. I make the horse 4-1. So at 8-1, sure. Now, in a normal case like this, if the horse had won at a mile, I might be willing to take a little less, like 6-1 or 7-1. That's a nice overlay on a top horse. And I'm a little concerned about the distance. Anyway, Churchill race 3, Weibull, 8-1 to 10-1 to bet. Yeah, everything looks right for this. So I also encourage you to look at the quote-unquote minor tracks. No, they're not minor tracks. They'll pay you the same as if, a bet on a $5,000 claimer like this race, Parks Race 2 from Derby Day from May 6, 2017, they will pay you the same money as a bet that you make on the Kentucky Derby. It's sometimes, I have to laugh at, because we can get very elitist about, I only bet the big races at the big tracks, and I only like, Santa Anita and Belmont, and so on. Those are great tracks, and there are opportunities at those tracks. Well, don't overlook the quote-unquote minor tracks. Now, here's a race at Parks where there are 4 horses above random, that blue line, that red line, rather. And there's a big gap below random. You see, from 5-1 down to 10-1. I'm looking at those top 4 horses. Now, my eye is immediately drawn to the 6 horse, Pretty Cool Cat, because it's 5-1 on my line. The contention, what I think the public should do with it, it's going to be high. And it's 10-1 morning line. And it's also the only horse above random that's got patterns, a type 1 and a type 2. I've got a big problem in the race, though, and that is the top horse, the Adema, is 2-1, and that's very big in the race, and it's the fulcrum. Now, when I looked at this horse, I had a couple of things that I don't like. I don't like it in a favorite, and this is the favorite, probable favorite in the race. It had a very hard race last time. Second by 1, then it fights, second by a half, then it fights, just gets the lead by a head, and then holds on by half a length. And it won a state-bred allowance at Penn. Now look, an allowance is an allowance. And you might say, well, heck, really, its last 2 wins were at 4,000, and this is a logical step to 5,000. Don't like that on a favorite. So I've got some real question marks. Now, if the horse is ready and it's not tired from that effort, and Scott Lake is placing this horse well. Sure, this horse can win. But I look at Stolen Victory, the actual morning line favorite. I don't know. I tend to think that they're going to bet that 3. This is a horse, the morning line favorite, mind you. Last 3 finishes, 11 lengths, and 15 lengths. Not only that, but it was claimed back in January for $7,500, dropping to $5,000 today. And I just think they may be giving up on this horse. The other favorite and the other horse that's up there is Zafiro Azul. Horse likes to finish second, I guess. 36 lifetime races, 8 seconds. And in 2016 and 17, it's at 18 races, and 6 of those finishes are second. So this is not a world beater either. Now, Pretty Cool Cat is by no means a world beater. However, I point out that it's 5 for 18 at the distance. The reason why the contention line is high is because that last race was terrible. But there's an indication, and this is the pattern. The second race back is pretty good. Then, I don't know what happened in the last race. There are one of 2 possibilities. Well, one of an infinite number of possibilities, but 2 main possibilities. One, the horse just had a bad day, and it didn't feel like running. Or maybe it had some issue in it. Maybe it chased from the inside. It didn't like being on the inside. Who knows? I'm not a horse psychologist, okay? All I know is the public will look at that last race and say, ugh, no good. I look at that second race back and say, horse likes the distance. I don't have world beaters to beat in this race. So I would consider this horse at 10 to 1, the 6 horse at 10 to 1. Is this, bet the farm on it? No, of course not. I mean, a lot of things have to go right. Diadema has to be a little tired because it is the top horse by far. The drop, being negative. Those are things that, see, I love betting against flawed horses, especially when my horse has some extras. And again, Pretty Cool Cat, again, it's not a great horse. But if I say that Diadema may be flawed, may have had a hard race, may be taking a negative drop, then I've got 3 horses tied at 5 to 1. Now, Stolen Victory looks like they may be giving up on it. Zafiro Azul kind of likes to finish second, and I'm down to Pretty Cool Cat that just got trounced by Zafiro Azul. So I think this horse is going to go off at a long price. Would I take this at 10 to 1? Absolutely, all day long. Would I be surprised if this horse runs up the track and finishes 9th again? Well, it's not going to finish 9th. There's not 9 horses in the race, but finishes last again by 24 lengths? No, it will not surprise me at all. Because I'm not in the business of predicting. Value capping is not about predicting the outcome. I can't. Nobody can with certainty. I don't know. All I do know is, sitting here before the race, this looks like a horse that I like, running against flawed horses, and each of those horses on top of it have some flaw that the public should definitely not like. So I know why I'm getting the price. In a nutshell, it's that bad race last time. It's got patterns. It's the only pattern in the arc. This, to me, I'll bet this all day long. And if you told me after if a horse does run another race like it ran last time, finishes up the track, I'd still make the bet. I don't know if I knew, if an alien came down and said, look, I've seen the future and this horse is going to finish last. Would I still bet it? No, of course not. But before the race, given what I've got, this is a good situation for me. This is a value capping bet. I don't remember, if you're betting horses that are 10 to 1, 12 to 1 like that, you don't have to hit many of these situations. So I wanted you to see, after the headache of a Derby, a couple of very simple, clear, value capping type races. Horses we like, the public shouldn't, running against flawed horses. And more than whether these horses win or the horses from the Bluegrass run well in the Derby, that's not the point. What I want to get across to you is a way of looking, a way of analyzing the races, where we bet horses we like that the public shouldn't, preferably against flawed horses. Now, you must wait for your price and let the bet make you. You get, after doing this for a while, you get a really good felt sense of when you're getting the best of it. And that's all you can hope for. You don't know what's going to happen in a race, but you can get the best of it before the fact by waiting for good overlays. So thank you again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll take away the principle of value capping, betting horses you like, the public shouldn't, betting against flawed horses, waiting for your price, finding horses with extras. I'm going to explore these much more deeply in the upcoming free value capping basic training course. So stay tuned for that. Also, the release of the Value Capper software, Blackmagic 2.0. Remember, Derby Day is another day. Go ahead, have a little fun, have a recreational bet on the Derby if you can't make sense of it, like I can't make sense of it, but I will have a recreational bet on it. I'll bet one of those horses that present some huge odds, but certainly not a real solid bet. Find your situations with horses you like that the public shouldn't, and then get a felt sense for this so that it almost seems automatic. I always say, let the bet make you. Until next time, Michael Pizzolla saying good luck at the Derby, and I'll see you soon.